How's everybody doing tonight? Yes, I'm fairly close to on time, amazingly enough. I am out in Marsing today. Do you know what's going on in Marsing? We're about 30 minutes, 30 minutes from Greg Pruitt's Second Amendment Alliance presentation out here in Marsing, out at, God, good question. I'm going to have to figure out where it's at. Yeah, let's see. The Spot Pizza Place. So, that's 30 minutes. So if you're still in Boise, chances are you're not going to make it here in time because it's about an hour drive. But Greg Pruitt, Second Amendment Alliance. How do you feel about gun rights? I'm a libertarian. You want to own a tank? Buy a tank. You want to own a fully automatic machine gun? Own a fully automatic machine gun. Absolutely. I'm not big on the gun control. Reason why is because I don't think it's really useful. Violence control is where it's at. How do we control the violence? Because that's why we keep talking about gun control, right? It's about controlling gun violence. Thing is let's talk about all the other kind of violences out there. We got violence against women and children. We got sexual violence. We got domestic violence. We got gun violence. There's a common denominator there, folks, and it's not the guns. It's the violence. So we had a little bit of opportunity to talk last night about prison reform, justice reform. Yep, definitely a sad thing. And what we need to talk about is how to actually address the issues of violence in the United States. I know gun control doesn't work. Prohibition never works. We've seen it with marijuana. We've seen it with drugs. We've seen it with alcohol. I mean, the biggest prohibition ever in the United States, we actually made a constitutional amendment for it, which we turned around and repealed about 5 years later. Reason why is because that bad. So we all know that prohibition isn't going to work. Getting rid of the guns won't stop the violence. Besides, that ship's already sailed. We have untraceable 3D printers right now. You can buy a 3D printer that's supposed to print anything. It's supposed to be able to print regular things for around the house. It's supposed to be able to print things for your car, just, day-to-day use things, so that you don't have to go to the store and buy these manufactured things. If you had a 3D printer, why would you need Amazon? Actually, 50% of, probably even 70% of the stuff that you regularly buy off of Amazon, you can literally go to your 3D printer, load in a cartridge, boom, it's there, it's yours. We can do the same thing with gun parts these days. That ship has sailed. There is no such thing as gun control in the United States anymore. Well, there's no such thing as gun control in the world anymore. Find somebody with a 3D printer, you can make a gun. Boom. We still have to address the issue of violence in America, though. So, go ahead, throw your questions at me. Oh, yeah. And just to remind you folks, since I tend to keep forgetting this, I am Joe Evans, the Libertarian candidate for the 1st Congressional District of the state of Idaho. I am running for U.S. Congress against Russ Fulcher. You saw my little ticker tape earlier. Please go to my fund site. Help me pay for this. Help me pay for my seat in Congress. Well, pay for the advertising and the stuff that actually is needed to get me there. Russ Fulcher has raised an extreme amount of money. I cannot compete with him on money. Partly because I know the people who really need me in Congress are having a tough time with money right now themselves. But violence, justice reform. Right now, we have an awful lot of people in prison right now. People in prison that are spending a lot more time in prison than individuals who went in there for violent crimes. By violent crimes, I mean murder, rape, felony battery, child abuse. You know, we have people who are in prison longer than those people for nonviolent drug offenses right now, which is one of the reasons why prison reform and justice reform is so important to me. Because we need to free up those beds for violent people. Because the sooner we can get violent people out of the community, out of our society, into a situation where they can be properly rehabilitated, if we so choose, and reintroduce them back into society, minus the trauma that would cause them to continue to be violent, the sooner we get rid of gun violence. In the meantime, a lot of those people who are spending a lot of time in prison who aren't violent could actually be out in the economy, working, doing great things for the community that they live in, other than providing slave labor for prison farms. Oh, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate the support. But yeah, so prison reform, ending violence in the United States. Prison reform is an essential part of that. What else you guys got for me? You know, we're 10 minutes down. I'm running out of things to talk about because I think that's a fairly concise definition of what we need to do as far as Second Amendment and violence. You know, one of my other favorite quotes, God, I wish I could remember who actually said it, is felons, criminals do not fear the police. They do not fear the court system. The thing we actually need to do is make them fear their victims, because that is the only thing that's going to stop them. Which is one of the reasons why I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment, of gun rights, of access to guns. One of the reasons why I like organizations like Black Guns Matter. Yes, if you get a chance, look up Maj Toure. Maj Toure, black activist, black libertarian. I used to talk a lot about Black Guns Matter. Oh, I think if you're willing to commit violence, it's an antisocial personality disorder. I don't want to use that as an excuse. Reason why is because criminal behavior is still a detriment to society. You shouldn't be getting out of being held responsible for the things you do because you were criminally insane. No, that doesn't work for me. We cannot use the excuse of mental health to justify someone's behavior to such a degree that we no longer hold them responsible for that behavior. But it does change the way we handle the issue as far as treatments in prison to help them heal from the trauma that has made them violent, provided that's possible. We know that sociopaths are generally made, whereas psychopaths are born. And you will not get a currently certified psychiatrist to actually agree with either of those points because it's that contentious in the field right now. But no, there are medical studies, there are psychological studies that have proven there is a difference between psychopath and sociopath. Psychopaths are born that way. You cannot change them. Sociopaths are changed. Ooh, that's a good one, Jamie. I don't think Americans, not real Americans anyway, I don't think Americans want a civil war. We do not want that kind of disruption in our community, in our economy, in our society. However, things need to change. And change is painful. The change we make make a lot of people really uncomfortable. And they would rather do violence in order to maintain status quo and accept the changes we need to make and create a better America for everybody. And I don't know why some people want what is more than what we could be. It's an extremely painful thought process, and I'm not in a situation to speak for those people who, are extremely content in their little bubbles, completely unaware of the things that are happening to their fellow Americans. And truth is a lot of the change that we want to institute, a lot of the change that we need to make would actually make the world a better place for those people who are fighting the change, which is another thing I don't quite understand. Nobody wants to turn, okay, let me qualify that. Most people don't want to turn the system upside down. Most people just want to tear down those institutions that no longer serve us as Americans. Regardless of our skin color, there are institutions that continue to be inequitable, that continue to cause problems, and getting rid of those institutions would benefit not just our Black and Indigenous persons of color across the United States, but I mean, seriously, getting rid of them would benefit everybody. You, me, and it would get rid of an awful lot of the disadvantages that continue to get in the way of people excelling, being able to perform better. But I think most of it is right now the move towards civil war is because a lot of us are really scared. Fear makes us want to seek what's comfortable. And right now, what's comfortable for a lot of people still is not good for a lot of others. This is one of those times in America where what we actually need to ask people is to be brave, to look at the possibility of change and accept that the change may be good for them as well as for their fellow Americans. But yeah, no, Jamie, I do not think Americans want a civil war. But like I said, a lot of us are scared. A lot of us are showing that false bravado right now, putting up the brave front, helping to maintain the status quo, maintain our comfort, in a system that really isn't healthy for us. We can do better. We've been doing better. Violence has continued to be on the decline for over 40 years, at least until the last 2 or 3 anyway. But the violence we had in the 70s, it's declined significantly since then. Even our gang violence in the United States gone down. Our children, up until 10 years ago, have a long lifespan than their grandparents, their parents. We got a lot of really great things going for us. And man, the news. And, we get these national broadcasts coming in from all over the country, and we just get bombarded with it left and right. Well, that's a good one, Jamie. Seriously, 90% of Americans do not support any sort of terrorist acts of injustice. Okay, I'm back. Now, whether those terrorist acts are committed by rogue Antifa, whether they're committed by rogue boot boys, whether they're committed by rogue cops, even. Um, nobody supports terror in the United States. Most of our protesters are peaceful protesters. They want to get out. They want to hear their voices heard. They want to have the redress of grievances. That said, there's an awful lot of opportunistic criminals out there. These people are not good people. They use the protests as cover to start riots. And some of these people are cops even. Some of them are FBI. Some of them are federal agents. I mean, take a look at what was going down in Portland. We actually had federal agents committing violence against peaceful protesters. Yes, there were violent rioters that were present at those peaceful protests. However, those weren't the individuals that were targeted. It was the peaceful protesters who did maintain enough of a distance so that you could distinguish between who was being bad from who was just there to have their voices heard. Do I believe the rioters and looters are being funded? Yes and no. A lot of the places where we're currently having problems, by the time it reaches the point where we're actually burning stuff, where they are burning stuff, burning down buildings, at some point, we either end up with somebody of a criminal mind who has decided, oh, it's been going on long enough and it's continuing to scale up that I can take advantage of committing murder under these situations, or other opportunities where people have actually been contracted to burn down certain buildings in order to make sure that there's an insurance payment that allows them to exit a potentially failing business. Most of these riots are creating opportunities for gentrification in areas that have been allowed to deteriorate in extremely bad ways. I mean, take a look at what went down in Kenosha. And you saw where the protests started, and then you saw the streets where they went into. I mean, literally, they moved from one area. The riots were in a lousy part of town. They were in the Auto Mall area. Who's ever been in the Auto Mall in any city, America? Yeah. Good question, Jamie. I honestly don't know why they're not releasing prisoners who have exceeded their dates because of the coronavirus. I mean, they were releasing prisoners with way out there prison dates because of the virus. Of course, most of those prisoners that were being released were friends of the government, friends of the president, friends of governors, high-end, very expensive lawyer type criminals. So, I mean, take from that what you will. Yeah. As far as the others, it's a good question. I know exactly what the situation is, other than the fact, prison staffs have been cut back in order to avoid the spread of COVID. Processing prisoners out of prison, I don't know why they could use COVID to justify not processing them out, making sure they get the payment, but at the same time, they don't exactly have a lot to get out to. Transitioning into a halfway house in a lot of cases, with the virus being a omnipresent issue. Yeah, that's another prison reform system issue, and it's one I don't have an awful lot of information on. Sorry, Jamie. Wish I did. I mean, honestly, this is really the first time I've heard that that's continuing to be a problem, and definitely should be addressed. I'm not sure where you're located at, Jamie. Where you at, Jamie? Yeah, we'll figure out where you're at. And one of the things is I would be operating at the congressional level. Okay, that means U.S., that means federal. That means I'm not dealing with like the Idaho State Penitentiary or Idaho State Correctional Institution, whatever it is they're calling it out there these days. Just like I wouldn't be dealing with, Montana or Oregon's correctional institutions. A lot of those have to do with state-based Department of Corrections and their procedures. You're going to have to go to whoever's specific parole office. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That explains a lot, Jamie. That explains a lot. Let's go ahead and address this issue. Parole officers aren't doing home visits and haven't been for quite some time due to COVID. For a lot of parolees, that's actually a good. If they're not doing the home visits, they're less likely to be violated for random reasons. At the same time, some of them can really use a health and welfare checkup just to make sure they're doing okay with the rehabilitation process, especially under the current stress situations, because hours have been cut back, jobs have been cut back, their ability to work, if they have family, their ability to meet and greet with family, moving between the halfway house and then coming back after visits to their family. COVID has still restricted, even people who aren't in prison from being able to maintain their mental health through the support network, such as family and friends. Yeah. So, okay, no home visits. I hope they're at least making the calls to check and see whether or not there's at least in touch with enough to lie about what's going on in their lives. No, that's not true. I really hope they're not lying. I hope they're on, but yeah. Damn, this COVID's messing everything up, folks. It's messing everything up. Who's ready for school next week? That's going to be a fun one. School next week. Yeah. No, Jamie, as far as the Nampa issue, I'll level with you. I don't like Idaho's justice system. It continues to be problematic, and our legislatures refuse to address the issue. Unfortunately, the individual who's sitting on our Senate Judiciary Committee happens to be a lawyer who continues to make an awful lot of money from our broken justice system because he knows judges and he knows the law, and he's not interested in making it easier for other lawyers to get people off. Personally, I think it's a conflict of interest. Why do you have a lawyer who's getting rich off of getting people off of drug charges, sitting on, is the chair in the Senate Judiciary Committee, sitting on justice reform bills? That's a state issue, folks. You're going to have to do something to make sure he doesn't retain his seat in January, whether that's elect him out. You pay a little bit of attention, go through, figure out who is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. You'll be able to figure out who you need to invest money in to make sure he doesn't retain that seat and keep our prison system broken. In the meantime, there's two. And this sort of sucks. Reason why is because I'm of mixed feelings about them. Melissa Wintrow and Brooke Green. Both are very interested in prison and justice reform. They've been working very hard to get bills through the Senate in order to make those happen so that we can reduce our prison occupancy rate, which is currently 20% over what it should be. But they're working hard at that. I said I'm of mixed feelings. There's certain other areas that I wish they would back off on, because they're still a little bit heavy on control emphasis, particularly regarding health and welfare programs and their involvement in parental discrepancies with child protective services. Depending on who you listen to, who you pay attention to, we continue to have a problem in child protective services in the state of Idaho, Western Oregon, and Western Washington that continue to leave children in difficult situations that should be removed from those situations, while taking children from parents who they feel probably smoking just a little bit more marijuana than they should be. Yes, because marijuana is still a Schedule 1 item list. CPS will still take your kids if they catch you smoking it, whether it's legal in the state or not. Welcome to America. Okay. I got to get over, catch Greg Pruitt's presentation over here at the pizza spot, the Spot Pizza. Yeah, personal investment in prison programs. Whether they got a personal investment in the legal system that continues to make them rich, whether they got a personal investment in for-profit prisons, aka Phil Batt's brother, whether or not they're somehow involved in the halfway house programs. There are an awful lot of lobbyist organizations, prison guard unions, prison unions, police unions. All of them have a very big interest in maintaining a very difficult and awkward legal system for us to negotiate. The reason why is because it keeps policemen employed, it keeps judges employed, it keeps lawyers employed, it keeps prison guards employed. And any organization that continues to collect dues from those particular career paths is definitely very interested in making sure that those dues continue. Think about that. Anyway, peace, love, happiness. You go back here, take a look, contribute to my campaign. I want to be your congressman so I can participate in some active ungovernance in Washington, D.C. Let's make this happen, folks. All your liberties, all the time. Community, that's where it's at, guys. Love you. See you around.